On today's recap of Undercover Boss, we'll be taking a look at two interesting episodes, find out what happens when this champion of chicken wings meets a chicken manager that rules with an iron fist and a foul mouth.
You got it everywhere, man.
Okay, I'll continue.
You were like a tornado.
I'm sorry.
Hurricane Pete.
What an ass.
Stay with us for excitement, thrill, and much more on today's episodes of Undercover Boss. With headquarters in South Carolina and Minnesota, Buffets Inc. is America's largest buffet provider. With 350 locations in 35 states, this American buffet king serves more than 100 million guests a year. And leading this massive company is President and CEO Anthony Weedu. Buffets Inc. was started 30 years ago as a small family restaurant, and it soon became very popular and grew very fast. And in 2006, it reached $1.7 billion in revenue with 150 million customers served. However, they were not able to sustain that growth, and sales plummeted dramatically, which resulted in two separate bankruptcies in the last 5 years. Anthony was brought in to save the company, and he's done just that in only 6 months. Anthony grew up in a family restaurant business, and he worked everything in the restaurant and learned a lot about the business. Anthony will be going undercover as Mike, a construction worker competing for business funding to change his life. For his first job, he travels to Lake Charles, Louisiana to train under the manager, and there he meets with Ernest, who gives him a tour of the restaurant and then gives him over to the dishwasher, Sky. Sky gives him instructions on how to wash the dishes, and he then tells him that all of them have to be done fast. He then tells him to do both stations, which was a lot of work. Anthony asks for more help and training, but Sky was uninterested and responds by saying,
"If you can't do it, then you can't do it."
Sky then starts talking down to Anthony and starts to be really condescending with him. They start having a little conversation, and Anthony learns that Sky joined a few months ago and that he really doesn't like the job. Anthony gets really upset and tries to go for a break, but Sky orders him to come back to finish the dishes. Anthony then goes to Ernest and asks to talk to him in his office, and as they leave, we hear Sky insulting him back in the kitchen.
Trying to tell me you only gave me a 1 minute training, bitch. You're only here for a day.
Anthony then reveals his identity to Ernest, and he tells him that the customer treatment is good, but that the employees are not. He also informs him to remove the bad apples from the restaurant, and he tells him, as a manager, that this is his responsibility. And so Ernest agrees to talk to Sky and do what needs to be done. Anthony leaves the restaurant without finishing his shift and calls upper management to tell them about the problem he encountered, which was mainly Sky. The next day, he travels to Fresno, California to work as a cashier. He meets with Michelle, and she teaches him how to greet customers and operate the cash register. He struggles at first when he was starting out, but he gets better by the end. On their break, he learns a little bit more about Michelle, and he also learns that she had to take care of her mother at a young age after her mom got diagnosed with cancer. He also learns that she wanted to be a criminal profiler, but she couldn't afford to go to college. The next day, he travels to Arvada, Colorado to work as a grill cook, and there he meets with Joey, who teaches him how to grill a steak, and Anthony does good, but he starts to get overwhelmed by all the customers that were waiting in line. Later, Anthony learns that Joey started as a dishwasher and got promoted to the place that he is now, but he still wants to get promoted again because he wants to work in the management position.
I want to be a manager here. That's where I want to go to.
For his last job, he travels to Alexandria, Louisiana to work as a server. He meets with Whitney, and he follows her as she takes orders, and next was his turn, and he does okay, but he starts awkward conversations with the customers while they were trying to eat. Later on their break, he learns that she has 2 daughters, which she and her husband work full-time to support.
My landlord literally gave us a 2-week notice. We have to find a place to stay now.
And finally, Anthony's undercover time has now come to an end, and he invites his employees to one of the restaurants to reveal his true identity. First in were Ernest and Sky. He tells Sky that he was disappointed with his work ethic and attitude, and Sky defends himself by saying that this was how he was trained as well. Ernest wanted to give Sky a second chance, so Anthony agrees to give it to him too, and they plan to retrain Sky, and he promises to get better and shock everyone with his new improvement. Next in was Joey, and he tells him that he appreciated his work ethic and offers to mentor him personally, and then gives him $10,000 so he can buy a new car. And next in was Michelle, and he tells her that he's invested $3 million to upgrade all the cash registers so they can be more efficient. He then gives her $15,000 for college and another $15,000 for her own personal personal use. And last but not least was Whitney, and he tells her that he was greatly impressed with her work and offers her a promotion which comes with double her pay, and he then gives her $10,000 so she can pay off her car and offers to buy her a 3-bedroom house with a backyard. And after the big reveal and the big giveaway, in the week since, Sky has been reformed and is now working to get a promotion, and Ernest is on his way to become a general manager, Joey is appreciating his new car and working hard as always, Michelle has enrolled at college to pursue a degree in criminology, and Whitney and her family are moving into a brand new home. On the second episode of Undercover Boss, the president and CEO of Buffalo Wings and Rings goes undercover. Headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio, and with over 5,000 employees and 65 global locations, Buffalo Wings and Rings is one of the fastest growing restaurant chains in the world. Leading this $100 million empire is the Sauce King of Cincinnati, Nadir Massadeh. Nadir was born in Jordan and immigrated to the US with his family when he was 15. He started work as a dishwasher at Burger King, and he came to love the business. And years later, him and his father opened a franchise for Buffalo Wings and Rings, and at the time, the restaurant had moderate success with only 4 locations, so Nadir, with a couple of investors, bought out the company and now has grown it to its global brand. Nadir wants to grow this company even more, and he wants to see how things are run from the inside, and in order to get that information and see what needs to be improved, he decides to go undercover. He'll be pretending to be Pete, an immigrant from Lebanon, and his employees are going to be told that he's on a contest on a reality show competing to win $200,000 to put toward franchising. For his first undercover assignment, Nadir goes to Cincinnati, where Buffalo Wings and Rings were started, and he starts work with Dave, a dishwasher and marketing ambassador for the restaurant. Dave is a very energetic and fast worker, and he shows Nadir how it's done. Nadir tries to shadow him, and he does the work correctly, but he was incredibly slow, and it created a shortage of the dishes in the front, and Dave took it back from him and finished it quickly. Later, they travel to a local gym to promote their product, and Nadir gets to wear the restaurant's mascot, Chief Buffalo, which he himself designed. He had fun dancing and hugging people and promotes the restaurant, and during their time together, Nadir learns that Dave works 2 jobs because he couldn't get a full-time shift in the restaurant. Next, Nadir travels to Chicago, Illinois to work as a server. He meets with Amber, a waiter in the restaurant. They get into it right away as lunchtime arrives, and Nadir helps Amber, who was great at her job, but she gets overwhelmed by the number of tables she has to take care of. Later, they go out for delivery, and Nadir learns that the management in the restaurant is bad, and they don't really treat the employees properly. She tells him that she once had an infection that made her unable to work for 3 days, but the manager told her that he didn't care and put her to work with her injuries.
I could not physically walk on my feet, and his exact words were, "I don't give a you need to figure it out."
After hearing this, Nadir calls the franchisor in private, and they talk about the issue, which ends with an agreement to improve on management situation. The next day, Nadir travels to Kentucky to work in the kitchen. He meets with Wes, the kitchen manager, and Nadir is immediately intimidated by Wes. Wes is a very strict boss who usually uses vulgar language. He takes Nadir to his first job and shows him how to cook the chicken, and Nadir follows as much as he can, but Wes wasn't really good at explaining how things worked. He also starts insulting him and calling him a virgin multiple times, and then leaves Nadir to do the next order by himself. A confused Nadir tries his best but takes too long, which makes the customers complain. Wes comes to the kitchen shortly after and scolds him, and he continues to insult him, calling him a bunch of vulgar words. The general manager, Red, is watching them from the counter, and she tells Wes to tone it down, but he doesn't listen.
Who stole my towel? If I see somebody take my towel, I'm gonna kick you straight in your little baby nuts.
And to make matters worse, Wes even started calling Nadir a bunch of names and started a chant. Nadir couldn't take it anymore and calls Red outside and reveals his true identity. He asks what they should do to Wes, and Red explains that Wes is a very horrible person to everyone, including the waitresses, but only the franchisor has the power to do anything about it, and since the franchisor is busy with a new chain, they're gonna have to wait until he gets here. This experience angers Nadir, and he wanted to end his undercover time, and he travels back to Ohio and calls all his employees, and now he's ready to reveal his true identity. First in was Wes, and Nadir confronts him on his behavior, but Wes argues back, standing firm in his management policy. Nadir then calls in Red and the franchise owner Sean, who now has learned about Wes's behavior. Nadir turns to Sean and asks him for his final decision, and Sean decides to fire Wes on the spot.
Nevertheless, you're not my employee.
I'm not gonna change me. I am who I am. Sorry, I'm such a scary monster.
And after all the drama, next in was Dave, and Nadir expresses his gratitude for his work ethic and offers him a full-time position at the restaurant. He then gives him season tickets to his favorite sports team, and on top of that, he gives him $20,000. Last in is Amber, and Nadir tells her he appreciates her honesty and promises to fix the bad management in all the restaurants. He then offers her a $25,000 scholarship so she can finish college, and before she finishes crying,
Guess what?
What?
I got you a brand new car.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
Get out of here. Wow.
and our episode today wraps up as Amber ecstatically hugs Nadir and goes to claim her new car.